Hi, this is Rana, and I have a challenge today for the Rediscover Your Scraps Facebook page. And my challenge is a read challenge because my second favorite thing to do in the summer is read. So for this challenge, you just need to come up with a word that goes with each letter in read. I have a few examples here, and I'm going to also have a bonus for making your layout about reading. So I am going to show you a little bit about what I'm going to be using, and then I will put you on fast forward. I have two photos that I printed both with a low saturation and then just in black and white vintage. So I'm going to decide which one looks better. I have a few dies for my D and die cuts. I'm going to be using the Well Read collection from Pretty Little Studio, as well as some stash to use up some of my stash. I have these super old alphas for my A, and I'm also going to alter them. I have a Spectrum tri-blend, and it's a red-brown blend, and I think that will make it match really well with this. So I'm using that. I have one of my favorite October Afternoon 8x8 pads, and I have this page that I really want to make work. I've got a full piece of it and some scraps. I also have some really old Lily Bee design alphas that I might work in here. Some that went with this collection, so of course they match well. I have a couple of 6x6 papers from an old collection that was a school collection that matched the colors in this line. I have lots of scraps, some of the 6x9 left, and then I have some from 12x12s and another full sheet if I need to use that. So I may use any or all of those. I have some enamel dots as part of my E. I also have lots of ephemera. Some of these are from, well, that's just scraps, but some of these are from Pretty Little Studio, Well Read collection, and then I think I pulled in a couple of others that were not, just out of another pack I had. Maybe not. Maybe they're all Well Read, but I thought that I had a few, and I still might. I have an older Unity stamp that I may be using. Oh, here's the other die cuts I just pulled out of a Simple Stories line. I have some really old stickers, some washi out of that same Simple Stories. Those are all books. I thought that was fun. I have no idea where these even came from, but these are possibilities. Some wood veneer. I have some really old stickers. These are Momenta stickers. These are Studio Calico stickers. And then the sponsor of this challenge is Spiegel Mom Scraps. And I pulled out several mixes that I may add in here. Colors from different ones, or we'll see how that works out. Which ones we go with. I also have some stamps, old Sassafras Lass stamps that I might be adding. Let's see. Arrows is one of the for A, and I'm going to have plenty of A's with alphas, and I do have some acrylic letters I may add in here too that I might alter as well. And I have some more arrow dies, and I have some star dies. So we will, and this one says awesome, and then we have the other little dies. So I am going to get started here on the layout, and we'll see where we go. Okay, we're starting with some mixed media here, and I just mark the center of my layout at the top, and then I'm going to use some of this mint tape because it doesn't rip my paper. and I'm going to make a big triangle. So I'm going to start with some speckled egg distress oxide ink, and I'm just going to blend that on. I do it real quick here, and I did speed the video up ×3 so that you don't have to watch all this. I love how the ink went on here. It was a nice color. It matched perfectly with the collection. And also, it really, the lines, the grid lines on this piece of paper, which is my favorite piece of paper from this Pretty Little Studio well-read collection, it resisted. The lines resisted the ink. So you can still see them really well, even though the blue was blended over top of it. So I thought that was kind of a fun little added bonus. So I'm finishing up with all of that blending. And I didn't want it to be perfect, and I'm going to add some more wet over it so it won't be perfect. You can see the big reveal. I always love pulling the tape off and seeing how that looks. So the next thing I'm going to do is add a bunch of splatters. So I started with a speckled egg, and I put that on a little piece of acrylic. So I'm going to add a lot of just splatters. Then I'm also going to add some really big splatters, just drips in places, and then do the smooshing technique and add some smooshes so that the edges weren't just perfectly perfect. I didn't want it to be too stark. I liked the look of it being kind of mixed up a little bit. So while I was letting that dry, I went ahead and pulled out all those scraps that I showed you earlier and did a bunch of die cutting. So you can see that I just used a ton of that paper and just went to town die cutting, and I'll have some for other projects after this because I didn't use near all that I cut. So then the paper was dry, so I'm going to go ahead and add in more splatters. I used the colors of Distress Oxide that I used that I thought matched really well with this collection were the speckled egg that's already on, wild honey, crackling campfire, rusty hinge, and crushed olive. And I did some like little tiny splatters by just tapping the paintbrush. And then kind of when I was going over the middle, I just really flicked it on there hard, and I got bigger splatters and, you know, more splotches, that kind of thing. It just adds it a little bit with a heavier hand. So I did that for each of those colors. And I apologize for this part of the video. By waiting until everything dried and coming back to it, I scrapbook in my sunroom, and I had my light on, but the sun is just so harsh coming out of those, you know, from my windows, that it didn't even matter that the lights were on. It was just going to still be lots of shadows. So that will go away here in just a few minutes because I do set this aside to dry and I come back to it the next morning. So finishing up with all those splatters. I was going to talk to you a little bit about my photos. You'll see them here again in the second, but the photos are of my grandson, my oldest grandson, who had an award at school for 100 iReady lessons that he passed, which is a big accomplishment because each lesson takes quite a while. So both my grandsons did get that little award in the 100 Club is what they call it at his school. And then just a picture of him reading. Both of them don't love reading as much as I do, but I'm hoping that they will love reading. The oldest grandson, he likes to read books that are true. He likes to read just lots of informational things. He does read just stories sometimes too, but he likes to learn something, which I love that about him. That's I love to read something that I'm going to learn something, except I always read fiction. So it's a story, but I still want to learn something. And he likes the nonfiction and the biographies and just learning things. So that's pretty fun. What I'm doing here now is altering my alphas. So I just scribble over it. These are alcohol markers, and I just scribble over the foam alpha, and then I rub it with my finger. And it is an alcohol marker, and it is going to kind of leave a little stain on my finger, but it comes off, as soon as you do the dishes. Not that big a deal. But I really didn't like the bright red. It didn't go with this line as much, and it's kind of hard to tell when I'm placing them that they're not bright red, but they really did match pretty well with this collection. And these alphas are super old, but they were very sticky. I don't know if it's because of the foam type, because some letters just don't stick that well after they get a little bit older, but boy, these did. They stuck so good to that acrylic, I didn't think I was going to get them back off. But I get that put on there, and I put Book Smart for my title. I actually had thought of a different title, and this design with the triangle, when I woke up. I couldn't sleep. I woke up around 3 o'clock in the morning, and I was thinking about this layout, and I don't know if anybody else does that. It is just part of the sickness, I think. But by the time I had gotten everything done and finally got to sit down and work on this layout, I could not, for the life of me, remember what the title was that I thought of. It was not Booksmart. I can't remember what it was, and I still can't remember. But it'll come back to me, I'm sure. But I thought Booksmart worked, and it fit in the area that I was trying to use for the title, and then be able to place the photos and all of the dies that I cut out, all those die cuts underneath. So I thought it looked pretty cute there, and I liked how the S and the T could kind of go up beside book, and then I had a nice flat line underneath that I could use this washi. I have a little mishap with my washi here. You'll see. I am just using an X-Acto knife and a very light hand just to kind of slice through that washi without going through my tape. And I get it, except for the one little bit on the corner. And as I'm peeling that, fiddling around with it and peeling it, then I end up ripping part of the washi tape off. So I think, oh, I'll just pull it up and then do it again. But as I'm pulling it up, it pulled up part of the paper. So I thought, well, we'll just go with it. And it worked out fine. I ended up covering up over that edge, and you could barely see it anyway. So it wasn't really that big of a deal. So the other side worked out perfect. It did just what it was supposed to do. And here I am trying to decide exactly how I want to put my layers. I like those little notebooks underneath, and I love that paper with the reddish, the dark red stars with the text on it. So I wanted to use that as a base, but then I felt like I needed a little something blue in there too. So I'm using this other sheet from the 6x9 paper pad. I'm going to just cut 2 little pieces of that for the top and the bottom, and it kind of gives it a little bit of a frame around it. And I ruffle up the edges, the torn edges that I did there. I like how that looked. I did end up deciding on the black and white kind of vintage photos instead of the, excuse me, instead of the ones that I printed with kind of a lower saturation. I was trying to not have all the colors because it was from 2 separate days, and It's an elementary classroom, so there's so many bright colors back behind him. So I wanted to just get rid of some of that because it was just too distracting. So I'm getting some of the dies placed. And our product focus in the Rediscover Your Stash Facebook group this month, Sarah just announced it, and it is a script, a product focus with using script. And she said that we can use products with words on it with script, such as papers or stamps or stencils. I've used several here, even die cuts with words. I've used several on this layout, so I was pretty happy about that. And it just goes so well when you're doing a layout about books, right? And all the words. I knew I wanted to have lots of words and things on this, so I get several in here on this layout, as well as all the stars. I just love stars. My Sassafras Last stamps I'm using now are really old, and I actually found those at a little scrapbook yard sale. I loved scrapbook Sassafras Last back in the day when they were still in business, but I didn't have this set of stamps, and I found them at a yard sale. Well, then I got home and I couldn't find them anywhere in my scrapbook bags. And about 2 years later, I found them at the crop in a pocket of the scrapbook bag that I just didn't realize was even a pocket that was there. So that was fun. I bought them and then I found them all new again 2 years later. So I'm getting some use out of them though, and I think they're fun. They're kind of a doodly. I think it was Doodle Ding is the name of the stamp set, and I thought that was kind of fun too to go with all my D's for read. I have lots of examples, and I'm going to list those out. If you go over to the Rediscover Your Stash Facebook group, there's going to be a list in the challenge, and then there'll be an album so that you can add your layouts to it. And it should be a fun little challenge. I mean, reading doesn't have to be oh, here's another stamp too. True Story is what this one's called. It was a Unity stamp. So another scripty thing. But anyway, your layout does not have to be reading related as long as you choose a word or choose a word to go with each letter in the word read. So red for R, or there's so many different words, and I have some examples. I'll list those out too. I showed the piece of paper where I was just kind of brainstorming some of the words, which was harder for me than it should have been, but I've got a few, and I'm sure you will think of plenty more so that you can be a part of that challenge. And there is a prize from Spiegel Mom Scraps, and she is giving a gift certificate. I believe it's a $10 gift certificate. So that's always nice. I love all of the Spiegel Mom Scraps sequins. I've been using them for so many years. The ones that I used on this layout are Sea Glass. There was a special one for Wild Whisper. Peach Fizz, which I think is still pretty new. She might still have that in the shop. And Earthy Treasure. Some of those are old and they're probably not available anymore. But the way I use my sequin mixes, I mean, a lot of times they're perfect for your project, the whole mix, just as it is. But sometimes, like with this layout, I just wanted to pick and choose certain sequin colors. So the Sea Glass was perfect as it was. And then I just added in like a little bit of orange, like the Wild Whisper had some red that matched perfectly. The Earthy Treasure had a really nice dark blue that matched really well. So I pulled a couple of those, and then I wanted something orange, but I didn't want the orange that was just like super sparkly. So because everything else was a little bit more flat and kind of distressed, and I just didn't want to go super sparkly on this layout. So for most layouts, I love the sparkle, but for this one, I just wanted it to be a more flat color. So Peach Fizz had some good oranges in there that worked out perfect. So I ended up using those. I'm kind of placing all of my die cuts that I die cut out and getting some ideas about where I want them. And I fussed around with this for quite a while, and then I turned the camera off before I glued everything down because I didn't want the video to be too long. It's long enough as it is because I am a super slow scrapper. I ended up cutting some of those stars out of that paper that had the kind of sunburst look, and I just wanted each color, but some of them I cut at an angle, and so I placed those on the triangle where the angle was one color on one side of the triangle and the other color on the other side, and I thought that kind of made it look neat and intentional. These little Studio Calico stickers were kind of fun too. It's like a cork board that has a stamped word, or like that one has a star on it. I thought those were really fun. I can't believe I've never used them before because the whole package was completely new. And I have no idea how long I've had those. They're definitely old. I was super excited to get the October afternoon paper in there, and it's lots of quotes from different authors, and I loved how that die cut, how it looked, and it went well with this, even though it's kind of printed on a yellow background or a yellowish looking background. It worked perfect because of the colors in this collection. It didn't look like it was like a non-white. So many of the newer collections have the really crisp, nice white, and some of the older collections have like a cream, or this one was even more yellowish. And I love how it looks with this. So I'm just going to keep that sheet of paper with this collection. I'm trying to decide up here at the top what I want at the top. And I was thinking one of these die cuts and just put the letters, the B in book, over top of it. So that's why I'm trying to decide on there. And I kind of got to this point, well, it was right after this point, I guess, that I was so scared that this is going to look like a Christmas tree because the triangle, I almost wish I would have done the triangle facing the other way, where it's just like rotated one turn and then gone sideways like that. But in the end, I like how Booksmart looks up above. I like the triangle. I wish I wouldn't have put the stars up there the way I did, because it almost, reinforces that whole Christmas tree look with a star at the top of the tree. But anyway, it isn't a tree. It's a triangle. So I'm going to go with that. And I thought it was fun how the mixed media looked, and I thought it was really, I was very pleased with how the Distress ink took to this paper. I couldn't do just a ton of water because this paper is, it's not a super thick cardstock, so it's a nice weight paper. It just doesn't take water as well as like the Vicki Boutin Foundations paper or something like that would. So the little enamel dots that I'm using here, I'm using some stars, and they are Doodlebug shaped sprinkles in Ladybug. And I use some dots and some stars just to add in a little bit more of that darker red color. The colors, the red color, the Crackling Campfire was kind of a reddish orange that I used in the mixed media and the splatters and everything. And the red kind of soaked into the speckled egg and didn't look as red as I thought it might. when I stamp the stars and things with it, they definitely look, you know, the more of the true color, but the splatters just kind of soaked down into the paper on the mixed media side, and you know, like the big triangle, and they just, I don't know, they didn't stay as true red as I thought they would. But so much of that is covered up anyway, which was the whole point, and I knew it would be. So because I fully intended to completely cover the triangle with all these fun little things, I just wanted the blue on there to have that background and you could tell where the triangle was and that it was intentional. So the sequins I'm just picking and choosing here, and then I will glue those off camera. I think I have discussed everything about the group, or the challenge that's in the group, but Rediscover Your Stash, there is going to be a hop for the same product focus that I talked about later on in June, and there's several other challenges. Sarah just asked all the members of the group if anybody wanted to host a challenge, and then she ended up getting Rachel Kent from A Cherry on Top and some other sponsors who are hosting some of the challenges. So I thought it was super fun. I always love to come up with a challenge and host one of those. It's just, I love challenges, and hosting is fun too. So I hope you enjoy it. I would love, love, love if you would play along and leave me a comment if you have any questions about the challenge or anything that I've used here in this layout. I did use a newer collection along with lots of older products, and that's kind of what Rediscover Your Stash is all about, getting some of those older things used up. So I feel really good about getting that accomplished today, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks a lot. We'll see you next time.